I'm Christian Schaff. Welcome to the Life Uncharted Podcast. Each week we talk to people who have taken unconventional and uncharted paths to success. We learn about their experiences, we get some advice, and we find how we can follow in their footsteps. Here we go. Today's guest is my friend Julian Carr. Julian's a professional skier. He's the owner of Discrete clothing, and he has the Cirque Series, which basically lets you run up a mountain as fast as you can. Sound like fun? You should sign up. He spent his life doing things on skis that people previously thought were nearly impossible, going off 100, 200-foot ledges. Today we're going to talk to him about how he balances life as an athlete, a business owner, how he stays healthy, and what's next. You know, our goal with this podcast is to talk to people who have forged unique paths and been successful, you know, kind of taken an uncharted path, to go back to our company, whether it's sports or business or both, and just kind of understand what makes them tick. I mean, my favorite podcasts are ones where I can go home and be like, here's 5 things I'm going to do now. Because this guy knows what's up. So
for sure.
I think you've probably got a lot of good stuff for me and everybody listening as we grow this out. So let's just start, right? I got a few questions for you.
Cool, man. Let's dig in.
But for people that don't know who you are, how do you describe yourself? Let's start there.
Well, it's funny because when I get into situations where like people are like, "Oh, nice to meet you," blah blah blah. What do you do? And I'm just like, you know, I usually just say, I got a few things going on. I got a couple businesses, and I ski professionally, and it all kind of is in the mountains. So I'm a mountain man.
You're kind of a sandbagger like the rest of them. Right. The rest of the people I talk to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wildly understated.
Yeah.
Discrete, and then you have the Discrete Cirque Series. Is that the official name? Right.
I just call it Cirque Series.
Cirque Series.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, Discrete Cirque Series.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you've got the whole skiing thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, where do we start? You're from Salt Lake, right?
Yeah, born and raised in Salt Lake. Yeah.
Skiing your whole life? Parents were skiers? Where to begin?
No, I started skiing in 8th grade.
8th grade.
Yeah. Growing up, I was playing lots of team sports, lots of basketball, football, soccer, and skateboarding. Like ever since I can remember, I got a skateboard and I was like butt-boarding down my street in the avenues. And then I started standing up on it. So I was always just skateboarding and always basketball, football, soccer.
Right.
And then gymnastics too. So when I got into 8th grade and skiing, and I kind of first felt and saw the possibilities of powder snow, instantly I was like, because I was always playing in the foam pits and had a trampoline in my backyard and all that. So,
but you were in Salt Lake and your parents weren't taking you to the mountains?
Yeah, we'd go camping and like go in the Uintas and
Just
do summertime stuff. But just my mom finally in 8th grade was like, "You got to come skiing with me."
Right.
So I did, and then like I said, when I found and saw the possibilities of powder, I was like, "Whoa, this is like a giant foam pit."
Right.
So even as like an 8th grader, 5th, 6th day ever skiing and feeling powder, instantly I just thought of foam pit and like a giant foam pit in the mountains.
That's interesting because when I think of powder, I think of skiing in the powder, but a foam pit's something you jump into.
Yeah.
So even at that age, you were thinking about a soft landing.
Totally.
Basically.
Yeah. But to go back a little bit more, in 5th grade, I actually did try snowboarding, and first day, I popped my knee pretty good, and so I like crutched around for a couple months. But yeah, I didn't touch snow again until 8th grade. My mom talked me into skiing because she went skiing, and it's just funny looking back because I feel so at home on skis, obviously, and if I wouldn't have crashed that first day snowboarding, I know for sure, like, without a doubt in my mind, I would have never skied.
You've been a snowboarder.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's so weird to just know that, you know.
So you got skis in your feet 8th grade, and then was it a pretty fast progression? I mean, I don't know the whole backstory, but like, when did you start really like being the Julian Carr that is here today?
Well, just like long answer short, throughout high school I skied 20, 30 days a year, but I mean, you know, 4th or 5th day ever skiing, it just clicked, and fell in love with it. I was like, I'm doing this forever, you know. And in high school I was going, 20, 30 days a year, and then in college is really when I started applying myself, and that's when, like, for all the OG skiers out there that knew the movies like Sixth Sense and Global Storming, like the old MSP and TGR movies, and even like Scott Schmidt's story, like Warren Miller, like Extreme Skiing 3, it was that era. And I obviously I was like, that's super cool, but I was also like, man, I can do that stuff, So in college, I started like try to develop relationships with some of the photographers I saw in the magazines and go out there and just try it. And it was cool. It was like, gave me the affirmation that what I thought was, I could, make it look as good or whatever. But then I was like trying to wrap my mind around, how do these guys make a profession out of it? How are they professionals,
And this was beginning of college?
Yeah, this is like first couple years in college.
So what are you going to college for?
I did just economics was my degree.
Did you have were you in your head, you're like, I need to figure this skiing thing out? Or you like, and college is my backup, or?
Well, ever since I was little, my dad, like my family, just always ingrained in me that college was next.
Right.
And so to me, it wasn't really to like get a job. I thought it was more just like to get a peace of mind,
Sure.
And I changed my major a couple times because I did, for a while, computer science. And that is tough. But my dad has a PhD in computer science.
Oh, wow.
So he would even tutor me. And I would like get half of it pretty good. And the other half, I would just bang my head against it. And so, but I will say, the last computer science class I took was called Discrete Structures. And at the time, things with my skiing were kind of coming together, and I was like just, brainstorming for whatever reason, a company name. So once I learned Discrete and the concept behind why it's applied to computing.
Tell me about that. What's Discrete mean to you?
Well, like there's so many unfinished, fragmented, significant things like calculus and trigonometry that never developed, but they have these little, like I said, significant processing, like things that people with computers are like, okay, we like these discrete little things going on over here because we can apply them in computing in some interesting ways for computer programming. And so Discrete Structures was like studying all these wild concepts of math that never quite became like a calculus and stuff that they use in quite a bit of computing. But I just thought that was cool. I was it means it's its own separate cool thing. And
so it's like an undefined calculus or algebra, or it's like a different pillar of something.
And even to this day, we name all of our discrete products after computer science terminology.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so whenever it's time to name new products, we just crack open the computer science glossary.
Is there a infinite number of those names?
Oh, there's so many.
Okay,
there's
so
so
you're
many.
fine.
I will never run out. It's like as big as the dictionary.
So you're in college, and now you've gone from economics to computer science. You're starting to ski a lot. You're working with photographers, and then you've got a brand name. So it all kind of was like going at the same time.
Yeah, I was just filling it all out. And I just knew that I saw when I was getting into skiing, some of the older guys, they weren't even old, but, I saw them not quite knowing what to do next. And I was just kind of like, I really don't want to be that guy down the road, because I know as an athlete, your shelf life is limited, So I was like, I should get a company going and at least get it going. I can worry about how to like actually make it a business later, but just create something. So I just started, I found this website because I didn't know what to make or anything, but I just knew that was a cool name, and I like spent 2 straight nights on Mac Paint, like pixel by pixel, making all my first logos and stuff.
Mac Paint.
Yeah. Right. And I got it digitized, and then I found this website that had dozen pack long 4-inch cuff plain beanies, and right away I was like, oh, you can uncuff that so it's like a tall baggy beanie, because from skateboarding, the baggy style, I was like, you could scrunch the beanie down and it'd be kind of baggy, and you put your goggles on, it would look pretty cool and kind of like have a tip on it there. And at the time that wasn't,
nobody was doing that?
No. And this was like 2000, I guess like 2005 or so. So the very first beanies I made were back then. And so fast forward 2 years, I went to a first trade show, and backcountry.com picked up what we call the Doinator, which is our tall beanie, and they kept reordering because it kept selling out. And then the next year, every beanie company had that style.
But you're just folding it down, right?
Not even folding it. You just keep it high, like resi style.
But like the difference between your hat and the other one was that it wasn't a cuff, right?
Yeah, because everyone that had been buying the ones I bought in dozen packs, they were 4-inch cuff beanies. So I uncuffed them and we just wore them tall. And then
Which meant what, cutting like it was sewn up or what?
It wasn't even sewn. It was just a cuff. And I put the embroidery right where people, if they even wanted to cuff it, it wouldn't make sense because then it would hide the branding.
Got it.
So people knew just to put it on and leave it tall.
Huh.
And so it's cool looking back because I'm sure there's people wearing tall beanies, but as far as a brand, like bringing that to market, it's exciting that like Discrete has that history, you know?
And do you think that Backcountry was selling them because you and your buddies were wearing them and it was...
Well, at the time, I was a backcountry.com athlete,
Okay.
and so it was really cool. I got like a great introduction to their buy team, and they actually motivated me a lot because they said no the first time I presented my stuff to them. And so the next year at the trade show, I was like, I'll show them. So I just made sure I had my act together more,
Right.
had better looking product, and then they said yes the second year.
Retail's not easy, though. I mean, maybe it was simpler back then, but I know even with my company, it's
Yeah.
like, that's a can of worms. If
It
you
is
decide to
for
do it.
sure. Like looking back, you know, as far as a business, we've been rolling now for like 7 years, but that was 10 years ago when we were first doing all that stuff, even
Right.
11 years ago. And just to think about everything I've done, it's like, wow, you know, but it was like a
So
education in itself
Was
that
the
I don't.
beanie like, you know, a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm going to have a company, I'm going to make T-shirts to promote the brand. Was it like that, or was it like, we're going to make clothing?
It was headwear. We're going to be a beanie company.
Okay.
So for like our second trade show we went to, I had a catalog. We had 56 styles of beanies in at least 3 colors.
second
was
trade
each.
show.
Second trade show.
It's a lot of
So I
inventory.
was, it's inventory, but it's also, at the time, a crazy ensemble jigsaw puzzle of production.
Right.
Because I wasn't big enough quantities yet to be producing everything high quantities like overseas in any kind of a factory. So I was sourcing from all kinds of weird abstract places that it was just a huge jigsaw puzzle. And I was, you know, sourcing reps, trying to play the whole game of selling into as many stores as we could, not selling direct to consumer because that was a no-no back then. And
Isn't that interesting how things have changed now?
Completely, yeah. It's wild. Like 3 years ago, we were, you know, 150 plus storefronts at REI and
Wow.
Zoomies and down the line, and now the only retailer we cut everybody out except for Zoomies, and all the rest is direct to consumer. But going back, like, that was definitely a tough kind of egg to crack because sure I had a degree, but just running a business and trial by fire.
I think the only way you
gotta
get a
just get in
degree
there.
in running a business is to start trying to run a business.
For sure.
There's just no other way around it.
No.
I mean, back to your sourcing thing, our product has like 40 pieces you have to source, right?
Yeah.
So 7 different countries.
Yeah.
And when are they showing up? And then when do we assemble?
Yeah.
And there's lead times.
Yeah.
They're all different. And
It's weird because it's quite simple, but to orchestrate the timing of your trade shows, your reps, your production schedule, your when do you ship to store, what's your net terms, when do you pay for your production down payments, just to conceptually be aware of all those moving pieces, although they're all simple, but just to be aware how it all culminates, that was always really, I guess, something I enjoyed, but you know, I think that's why I have been able to pull off like having a ski career and have these couple businesses going too, because I just feel like I always use an analogy that when, you know, you're a kid and you play on those like things that spin you around in a circle,
Yeah,
and you can like make them go faster.
Yeah.
I feel like I have
flown off some of those.
100 of those
Right.
all over this 100-yard like playground, and I have to like make sure I keep them all spinning. So you have to like just go and make sure you're paying attention to every little area, because if one stops, even though it's a little one over there, it's gonna
Stops the
affect
whole
the other
thing.
one. Yeah. So it's a weird awareness.
How soon after you started did you start getting help? Like, I right away, I'm not great with legal stuff and whatnot. I had to bring in friends to help me with that. Like, was it right away you brought some buddies in, or did you run it for a while?
So like year 3 or so, a really good friend of mine named Billy Poole came on board with me, and so he was gung-ho, and for about 9 months we were like, we're partners, we're doing this, and he helped out so much. And then he actually passed away
Right.
in a big skiing accident filming for Warren Miller, and so from that point on I've had a lot of amazing help, but like I could definitely say I've taken a lot of a majority of keeping it all going.
How many people do you have on it right now?
There's like 6 or 7 of us.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool
Efficient.
now. Yeah, it's good. It's a lean, mean team, you know?
Right.
And yeah, there's people holding it down that obviously I wouldn't be able to do it now by myself. But for a few years, I was definitely skiing, going over the world doing that, and like kind of single-handedly running the company too, which was wild to look back at.
If you're like me, like you land and it's like, where's Wi-Fi?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You check in and you might spend 2 hours at the Starbucks with your bags at the airport, just making sure there's no fires, right?
I'll be out like shooting in between like cliffs and doing wild stuff, and while I'll hike up and photographer gets there, I'm like doing all kinds of emails, just out doing the ski thing, you know.
Do you think the balance helps each other?
Yeah, I think so. It just becomes a pace, like kind of your. It all just it overlaps so much that just becomes how you proceed with your daily life, and you don't really think of it as a job. You don't really think of it as three separate things, because there's so much overlap between the three, and so much opportunity has been provided by one to the other, back and forth, that has enabled all three to coexist and provide opportunity to one or the other.
So on the skiing side of things, when did that start making money or getting to a stage where it was that before this, or was it exact same time, or?
Skiing first.
Skiing first.
So that was my whole thing. I'm like, I'm going to make skiing happen, then I'll turn Discrete into something. And as soon as I graduated college, which was wild, my last like year in college, I was starting the company up, making things happen on the skiing side, and I was working in a sports bar and finishing school. So, I mean, I was like 4 full different things all going on at once, and I was like up early, hiking for sunrise, shooting all day, drive straight down to the sports bar, work. I'd be borrowing like the manager's laptop when he wasn't looking to do emails, because I didn't have a laptop back then. And finishing school. So it was a wild year. But I got, as soon as I graduated from college, I was like, okay, sweet, I can like really focus on skiing now. And that next year is when like all my kind of big boy contracts started happening. And it was kind of neat. This one day I was out shooting with Warren Miller, and I got this great email from Spider, and they're like, okay, cool, we got your contracts. We're really happy with how things have been going, and we really want to support you and enable you, because we really believe in what you're up to. And they're like, take a look at the contract and give us a call, And so I look at my email and I open it, and like all of a sudden it just hit me. I was like, I can quit my freaking sports bar job. I'm done. Yeah, so.
Well, I love this story because, I mean, I follow your Instagram account, and I probably get a lot of the feedback you do, although maybe you don't get this, but I get a lot of, oh, your life looks like so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you share the best moments, but there's so much hustle.
Yeah.
And so much like falling asleep at the laptop to make these things happen.
Totally.
I mean, I've had multiple jobs before too, and I don't know if there's another way around it unless you just win the lottery.
For sure.
But,
and that's, I mean, even like before that happened with Spider, my first year I even got like sponsors, just like free product from a bunch of companies. I was like stoked. I was like I was like 19 or 20 years old, and I just felt so strong. I just felt invincible, and shattered my femur in 11 pieces, like really, a monumental hurdle there. And
do you have insurance for something like this?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
I had a great surgeon.
Good.
Yeah, one of the best orthopedics. Did my surgery, and I had an amazing physical therapy team. And I mean, I just took that as serious as anything ever in my life, was making sure that my leg would get back to 100%.
Right.
And anyway, that injury is just one of those funny things that when people do throw out comments like that, of like, oh man, you just get all this free gear, you get paid to go over the world, how nice. I'm like, there's been so many things that I've endured that obviously is part of your character at this point.
Right.
But, I can't blame people for thinking that. That's fine. But I enjoy the professional aspect. Like I said, I wanted to figure out how. That's great if you want to be a great skier or have fun skiing, or if you have talents, but can you be a professional? Can you actually, conduct yourself in a manner that you're trustworthy enough to storytell for these brands, that have giant, they're big companies, and they take it serious if you can actually do it or not,
one of the things I do is I take a lot of people over to Iraq to do entertainment. I have this thing called Bikes Over Baghdad. I take all the
cool.
BMX guys over, and we've been doing this for 10, 12 years now. So I've watched guys get contracts and lose contracts, and I've watched events come and go. And I'm not in that world, but I sit on the bus and listen to these guys talk about it. It's their life. Yeah. And it is a fine line, right? Because a lot of times a brand wants the craziness and that vibe, but they also don't want to deal with the craziness.
I know, right?
And there's like this fine line these guys toe of like, how far do I push things where I'm going to optimize my opportunity?
Sure.
And that's too far. Now I lost it.
Well, like for every industry, especially in action sports, there's always like in skiing, there's the Candide Thovex. He's just so good. It's gonna happen.
Right.
That kid happens to be just an amazing producer type person anyway. But a lot of great talent comes along. I've seen so many amazing skiers come along, but they just don't have the other aspect put together. So they show up for a few years and then they kind of fade away because they didn't. They're just maybe uninterested in that other aspect, and that's fine. But luckily for me, I've found that I really like that. And although I know there's tons of skiers that are better than me, it's like I take I'm pretty good at the business side, and I dig that, And
you have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I've seen the same thing. It's like people are super good at something, but it's like you have this plant, and if you don't water it, it dies. Like you have to be able to do all the other things. I mean, the best guys I know treat it like a business. Like they wake up in the morning and they're like my buddy Rooftop.
Yeah.
He is married to his GoPro. Sure. He's got to get a shot every day. He's got to do this. It's like...
Well, that's one of those guys that has a 2-decade career in action sports.
Right.
And that's why. Because he's
professional about it.
Yeah.
Wakes up and gets it done. Right.
And that's what's fun explaining to people when they do just think it's all fun and games, Right. But there is just so much going on underneath it all that is, you're a producer, you're understanding how to integrate yourself into all this traditional media that exists out there, these movie companies and all these crazy webisodes, and how are you going to do this and that for each particular sponsor that you have, how are you going to link up this full schedule, have the fitness to do it, have the asset management to facilitate like all those projects, and then be able to self-produce and then be good at social media and just figure out your own like self-narrative and all that stuff. It's just like so much going on. It's like, how are you going to untangle all that?
So that leads me to a question for you. Like, so right now you've got the Cirque Series, you've got Discrete, you're skiing. Like, take me through a day in the life for you. Like, what's a typical, maybe winter and summer are different, but what's normal?
Well, like, right now we're dealing with production for our fall line for Discrete. So we're doing beanie design, and we're getting all these great things going for Discrete, thinking ahead 4 months to the next holiday season, next fall. And we're currently, so I'm talking to China, I'm figuring out beanie styles and minimums and looking at the budgets and all that kind of stuff. And then Cirque Series, I'm up like this morning, hiked the Brighton course because our first race is June 30th. And
so what time are you up in the morning?
Today was 6:45.
6:45?
Yeah, and while I'm hiking that, I'm doing social media on my personal account. I'm doing emails with, my ski sponsors because it's contract time to renew some of them. I'm making plans for what ski projects I'm going to do in Argentina in September when the races are over. And we got private label stuff we do with Discrete every week. So I'm monitoring those projects with the private label manager. And trying to maintain my own fitness by just going on hikes every day and trying to do yoga. And really, it's just, like I said, at a high level, trying to be aware of all these moving ships that I got to keep steering around, But it's fun because, I do all the social media for Discrete and Cirque Series and my skiing account. And to me, that's all just intuitive and pretty easy to find like an authentic voice from each platform. Right. And luckily, I really just love being in the mountains. I really do. And I feel like my mountain fluency from being in the mountains so much my whole life, and obviously as a career skiing, has lended itself to like obviously it's fun to have a creative outlet to make clothing and to still be a part of the mountain community. And then with the mountain races, you know, it's unique that we're throwing short races. They're only 8 or 9 miles, but they do go to the top of a peak in the high alpine and back down, the same kind of peaks I'm hiking in the winter. So that mountain fluency, that passion for the mountains has just been really cool, because I can distill it into these really cool projects, which obviously skiing is fun. And
you have a unique set of skills that like perfectly led into this, right?
Yeah.
Like if you didn't do what you did your whole life, you probably wouldn't do this as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, because even looking back to when I was, you know, before I started skiing, like pre-teenager, my dad would always take me camping. We were always doing the outdoors and supporting my team sports and all that stuff. And we'd be driving around. My mom and dad would be like, look at those mountains, because we might not live here, because my dad with his computer career got recruited to go out to New York for this cool job, and he was like really considering taking it.
Wow.
And he submitted like, well, however it went down, but essentially it took like 2 months too long for that company to get their act together to, you know, give him the confirmation. So in the meantime, he found this great research job at the University of Utah, what he liked doing, and so we didn't move. But it was weird, because I was like 11 or 12 years old, and it's just so weird to think.
Did that scare you at that age, or
no? I mean,
you just didn't. You were just going with the flow at
I've
that
always
age?
loved mountains, but I also love like urban environments. I
Yeah.
love cities. I love like just skating around them or cruising around coffee shops. I like metropolitan areas, and so it's just weird. I'm like, who knows what I would have been into in New York City? You
Yeah,
know?
no kidding.
But I'm very thankful that I've had a life in the mountains, and especially being located in Utah, Salt Lake City. It's a just special place that, man, I can't even believe
I've only
it's
been here almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
I just don't know why you'd ever leave. Like I've lived a lot of places. I've been a lot of places. This is as good as it gets for me. I mean,
I know.
I can't think of what I'm missing, really.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, and it's pretty nice up here too. You guys get the minus 10 degrees on the 100-degree heat down in Salt Lake. You guys are doing good in the 80s.
I was in Salt Lake yesterday. I'm like, man, I'm so thankful I'm up the hill, because this is sweaty.
I know. We got to do one of these shows where someone gets to interview you, because I want to hear
me?
about. Yeah, I want to hear all these places you've been. I want to hear.
We can
all your
talk about
stuff.
that another time. Yeah, I've had some interesting interesting excursions. But so I want to talk about skiing a little bit, and then also the running series. I think everybody knows you for these cliff dives, right? Like, I think the first time I saw one, I was like waiting for you to throw a parachute, and you didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've talked about this ad nauseum, but for people that haven't heard this before, the tallest cliff you've gone off is what?
210.
210 feet.
Yeah.
I think that was a video we watched today before I came down here. I showed these guys. I'm like, I just don't understand, because I've gotten pretty beat up at 20 feet.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. Oh, yeah, me too.
I'm not good in the air.
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of a ground-dwelling guy. So
Well, it's
I
funny.
read an article you talked about you were kind of stuck at 50, but even 50 sounds insane. So how did this become you?
Yeah, I hear you. Well, it's funny, because when I'm doing those cliffs, I'm so in the moment and in my zen and hyper concentration, hyper awareness, all these great things that I've learned, this really cool way to accomplish it. But when I'm not in that moment and I see the videos or I see the photos, I'm like, that is so gnarly. Like, holy cow.
Like, that's the way to put it.
Yeah, how did I become that guy?
I went for a run with my friend Kayla Richardson the other day.
Yeah, Kayla's great.
And I was like, well, you know, Julian, like, what should I talk to him about? And I just remember her saying one thing. She's like, I think he knows how to make, like, his bones soft.
Yes.
Like, when he lands. Like, she's like, he, like, zens out in some way. And she's like, I don't get it.
Yes, I love it. Well, it's...
They say it, like, in a car wreck, like, the drunk person never gets injured, right? Because they're so, like, relaxed.
Exactly. That's
is it
what
the
it is.
same type
It's
of thing?
supreme relaxation / confidence. And to get to that point, though, is a process that begins with 100% like critical thought and fear, you know, but you fuel your critical thinking with your fear to the point that you study what you're about to do. So, and as you, because I kind of have like a checklist, you know, of first it starts with the landing.
Right.
Is the landing steep enough? Is it deep enough? Is it soft enough? Are the layers just right? Like, there's so much with the snow science of it all that it's not just one certain condition is suitable. Like, it's a lot of different conditions.
What are the things you look for? Do you have any special tools, or you just kind of like kicking the snow and be like, yeah, looks pretty good?
It's usually, like an odd combination of skiing in the area for a few days at least, because I travel a lot and find cool cliffs and end up pulling them off. But you want to, ski in the area and feel the snow, feel the layers, ski through it, like start to develop a relationship with it. And then obviously if it's a good winter in that region, just like in Utah, if it's a good winter,
right.
we'll have a 100-inch base.
Right.
So up on mid-mountain towards the peaks, we have 150 plus inches of snow. And especially on the north-facing slopes where these type of landings live for these cliffs, it's 200 inches of snow that's, taller than this room on a slope, just as a base. So then you start thinking, okay, all these storm cycles have been coming to this mountain. There's at least 2 or 3 feet of these great layers of all this new snow lately. And it's supposed to snow another foot tonight, foot tomorrow, and we got some big storm coming in. Okay, things are kind of shaping up here. This is starting to get me to think about even the possibility of this cool cliff I know that I just saw yesterday around the corner. And since I know that they have this 200-inch situation up there, the landing appears like it's good. The landing, from what I can see, looks like it's good. I'm going to go over there and start studying it, so that if these storms do come in the next 2 days the way it looks like, then I've already pre-thought out all these logistics that I will come up that morning and make the final assessment. But I need to make my pre-checklist right now to see if it's even doable.
Do you bring someone with to pre-check with you, or do you trust your
It just
own?
depends on where it is. But for the cliff itself, as far as traveling around the mountains with friends, obviously I always want to have someone there with me. But yeah, it's this odd thing that I'll never trust anybody else but myself,
Right.
Because I'll be out shooting, and a lot of times I'll see some of these athletes that are asking other people what the landing's like and stuff, and I'm like, man, I cannot believe that guy doesn't want to come down and feel the landing himself.
Yeah.
And then they'll do it, not know exactly what they're landing in, and I've seen so many people concuss themselves, tear their ACL, break their arm, hit their head, literally right in front of me because they didn't come down and probe themselves.
Right.
And it just boggles my mind, But like I said, I've broke my leg, I've done all kinds of stuff. I've tore my knee twice, I've had plenty of injuries. So, but with these big cliffs, I just have to do this weird assessment thing that I've been lucky enough to find my own protocol,
Does your mom know you do this?
Yeah, I've been on a couple takeoffs. This one in Wolverine Cirque, I just talked into my radio. Everyone's out in position. We spent all day setting it all up. 10 seconds, put away the radio. My phone starts ringing, and I'm I try to ignore it, and then I'm and then I'm hold on, guys, my phone's ringing. So I lift it out. It's my mom, and I'm
she talk you down off the
put
cliff?
it in. So then I put it away. I'm okay, guys, 10 seconds. Then I, in this particular case, I front flipped a 160-foot cliff, skied away, went out into the landing, and then called her back. I was like, hey, Mom. She's like, oh, did I catch you at a weird time? I'm I literally just did a front flip off a 160-foot cliff. She's like, no, you didn't. I'm I just did. I'm I saw that you called. I thought I'd call you afterwards. She's like, are you okay? I was I'm fine, Mom. And she had a hard time with me going down this path for a little while, but then one time she just was like, Julian, she's like, do you love what you do? I was like, I do, Mom. I love it. She's like, okay, I'll be at peace.
I always wonder, I know Travis Pastrana and guys like that, right? And I watch people doing these things and just wonder, I worry when my puppy jumps off something too high. You know what I mean? Dude,
Mom.
I care about you so much.
Because,
don't do that.
She was right there helping me with my broken leg and some of these other surgeries. So it's not just this, do you love it? Okay. It's a thick history between my support system and scaring the crap out of them with a few major injuries that I've had.
Do you think it'll change when you have kids?
Maybe.
I've seen friends of mine just stop taking risks.
Yeah.
Something just, I feel chemically inside them, they were I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. That's to be determined.
Right.
But Yeah, it's interesting because I feel fear just like anyone else. Because people are like, do you even feel fear? Are you fearless? I'm like, no, not at all.
Right.
I'm really full of fear. Like in like one cliff in particular up in Whistler, just like 3 years ago, is some cool cliff they call Air Jordan. That's like this really cool double. You do like a 15-foot cliff, make like 3 turns and come off a 50-foot cliff. And it's like the rites of passage for all the guys out there. And I went out there, and same thing. I'd been out there for like 3-4 weeks filming, and the snow was pretty dang good. And then these storms came in, and all of a sudden this like fantasy idea I had, which was singling the entire thing, just coming at a ton of speed and clearing the whole scene. Just don't even do it as a double, do it as a single. And I was like, wow, this might actually be a possibility. So I went over there to kind of size it up from the side, and it all looked good, but the storm was coming in that night, and we'd been filming all over, so I hadn't had any time to go seriously assess it. So this giant storm comes in, shuts down the top of the mountain for a day, and then the next morning it's going to be blue. And so, luckily I was able to arrange the early chairs, and I had a buddy that knew exactly how to get to that area, because I'd actually never stood on top of Air Jordan before. I knew exactly where it was, but he took me straight to it. And it's so intense because you're on the edge of the world, and there's like jagged trees and rocks everywhere. It just looks like a 500-foot cliff. It's just insane. And I was so scared. And I'm like, just calm down. Just get out to the edge of the cliff and assess. So I go sidestep down to where like the takeoff is, and it's just intense being in the area in itself, Heart rate is pumping, full concentration, and I get to the edge of the cliff, and it's not super sheer. I like all my big cliffs to be like sheer,
And you don't hit something on the way down.
Yeah,
right?
And this one travels out a bit, and so instantly it's like butterflies in the stomach, like get out of here, flee. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, brain, Mr. Fear man up there, like, you didn't come up here to see if it was scary. Of course it's scary. You came up here to see if it's possible. Is this possible? Now look and assess, and that's what you came up here to do. So then I started like really assessing, even though I was like even scared to put weight on my poles in this particular area. And I started like really looking at the whole thing, and all of a sudden I was like, this is possible. And I was like, dang it, I wish it wasn't.
Yeah, right.
So I'm like, well, now what? And I'm like, well, you got to go down the landing and go do your thing. Yeah. So then I ski around, go check the landing, and it's so good. And I'm like,
how much snow do you need to do something like this? Like, what's your, like, if there are 2 or 3 things you look for? Is it like how deep your pole's going? Is it kind of the thickness of it?
Like once, like, I already know there's that 200 inches up there.
Yep.
And then all these nice storms are coming in, and it's just like, when you think of jumping off like a 2-story balcony next to like the pile of snow next to the hot tub.
Right.
I want like 4 to 5 fresh feet of snow on the angle with those layers underneath, So I want like a 12-inch storm the day before it's cold and never gets warm, like, so it stays nice and light, and then at least a 30+ inch storm that I'm going to be encountering like the next morning.
Right.
So that's exactly what happened in Whistler. It snowed a bunch of these little 12 8-inch storms in a row, and then shut down the mountain on a 30-inch. And so I came up, and it was like cold beyond perfect. Like, jump off anything, you're going to be good,
Right.
And anyway, I got back down on the chairlift, bolt up there, and by then all the camera guys had everything going. I just didn't know if I was going to do it, because I still had some hesitation, I just didn't feel centered. But because I had to go make the in-run now, because the in-run needed a bunch of work. But I started building that, and by the time you start building it and you start processing what you're doing, I know it sounds like super like, hippie, or whatever, but I literally calm myself so down that I feel like I'm meditating to the point where I stop thinking, and I become so like hyper aware of my body, my skills, what I want to do, my intent, like where my heart is, where my mind is, and how it all connects to the snow I'm stepping on.
Are there techniques
the air
that
I'm
you
about
do
to
to get into
travel
this?
through?
Like,
No,
is
it's just
there
something I
breathing,
found. Breathing for sure.
You just close your eyes? Like, what do? You just,
I mean, I'm
nobody
just
talk to me for 5 minutes, and I need to,
Yeah, it was like an hour of me sidestepping and creating this thing and just trying to find my zen, to find that confidence, that clarity, you know? Because even when I broke my leg way back, I made a promise to myself that if I wasn't 100% about something, I would just walk away no matter what, you know? Because I used to be like a 99% guy.
These are hard things to be 100% sure about, though.
Totally. Well, that's what I mean. I go through this process of getting to 100%. And when I do, not a single hair in my body doesn't not know, because I've already pre-lived it, I've pre-visualized it, to the point where, like, visualize, it sounds stupid to say I visualize it, because it's way more profound. Like, it's this really intense experience that I have with my mind and my body and what's around me. I feel like I tap into, like, all the energy that's around, and it feels that I have the right intent. And so it, like, grants me this access and this knowledge on, you can do this, and we're right here with you, kinda. And when I do it, then I, like, snap back out, because I'm like, okay, I'm a part of a professional production here.
Right.
I have my radio communications, I have all these capturing devices, and yeah, I want to document this and storytell, because I know if there was another guy out there doing this kind of stuff, I'd want him to be also storytelling.
Right.
So I take that as, like, a outsider perspective of, yeah, you should definitely make sure you're documenting. But when I get airborne, it's this crazy thing, because I see how far away the ground is, and in that split second, I have so much crazy thoughts that go through my head that it's like this time warp, because I experience...
Things slow down, right?
It's insane, yeah. But then when I encounter the ground, I'm so relaxed that I don't even feel it. And that's what's really hard for people to grasp, and myself, because, like I said, I get let in on, like, some kind of special access with the mountain, and I'm so relaxed that I literally don't feel it. And it's just, I'm laughing, you know, afterwards, because
I don't believe
it's
you.
so calm. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing, but I love it, and it's just this strange thing that I've developed a process for.
Are you still trying to push this and go higher, or are you kind of like, I feel good where I'm at?
Well, I've never started doing it with any kind of, I want to go out and get world records, or I want to go out there and get some number. It's always been, I love to travel, I love the mountains, and I love powder, and I love cliffs, I love skiing. And like the one in Switzerland that was 210 feet, I just thought it was a beautiful cliff. And then, you know, go through the whole thing and pull it off successfully, and then we measure it, and it's 210 feet. And to me, I was just shocked.
What did you think it was?
Like 180. The biggest cliff I had jumped up to that point.
Only 180.
The biggest cliff I had jumped up to at that point was 175 feet.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be around the same. But as soon as I came into the air, I was like, whoa, I'm way higher than I've ever been before, you know?
And did you, like, front flip off this? Or
Yeah.
what? So does your rotation screw up because it's longer than you thought? Or?
I tipped the front flip over a tiny bit faster than I would have wanted to, but I was able to slow my rotation down that I still landed just right.
And what hits for, is it the heels of your skis, your back? Like, how do you kind of...
Well, since it's a front flip and you're, you know, swan diving essentially and seeing what's happening, you can see the ground coming up at you. So you tuck your head over when it makes sense. And so essentially, even though it happens in a split second, you tuck it over and you fall another 40, 50 feet or whatever, but your, like, you know, back touches first, but it, like I said, it's a split second, and the distribution goes back, lower back, butt, hamstrings, feet, skis. So, like, almost, it's like weird because the brunt of it all actually gets kind of slingshot into your skis, even though your back hits first, because it's, you know, it's a front flip and actually works with the
rotation kind of.
The angle of the mountain.
Right.
But I've done straight airs off 175 feet. In the last, like, 30 feet, the wind kind of caught my skis and started putting me, like, out of control. But
so
luckily I
landed
landed just
some
right.
kind of rotation than try to hold.
Well, I did a backflip off a 140 footer once, and that was an anomaly. But I had, like, this crazy full body visualization while I was building the takeoff. I was not planning on doing a backflip, but I had this neat thing that happened so I pulled it off just right, but that was the only backflip I've ever done off any cliff bigger than 50 feet, just that one time. But my thing is front flips, because you're in control the whole way down. If you do a straight air, you leave your skis open. If you do a backflip, it's when you set it is kind of, you're at the mercy of that, you know? So
Right.
with the front flip, you dictate, and you slice through the air, and you're not subjecting yourself to catching any kind of wind on your skis or your body.
So there's other people that do this. I mean,
There's like there's two guys right now that are out there definitely that like cliffs, and that's Owen Leeper and Todd Laguerre. You know, I don't think, well, I know just because I've been with them a few times where I've been able to pull off some that they're just like, you go ahead, man.
But like, do they experience the same thing, or do they have a different technique, or like what?
No, they both do front flips from high spots because of those same reasons. And it's cool because those guys are just beasts skiers, and they're so talented, and they definitely know how to do big airs too.
Right.
But the only other guy that was doing the big stuff was Jamie Pierre, and he had that avalanche accident about 4 or 5 years ago. And you know, he had a different approach than I did. He would always openly just say that he used balls. You know, he uses balls and just go for it. And he was a phenomenal skier, and I studied his cliffs before I started doing the big ones, because I was like, how does Jamie Pierre do these big cliffs? If he can do it, I can do it, you know? So I would just watch clips of his and just be like, how is he doing that, you know?
Right.
And finally I did have an epiphany, like you mentioned earlier, because I was doing at the most around 50 footers. After watching Jamie Pierre hit this beautiful cliff up in Wolverine Cirque that he pioneered, which is still one of my favorite cliffs, and I don't know how he had the vision to like be like, I'm gonna go hit that, but he did, and I'm thankful because it's like a great gateway cliff to over 100 feet. Great landing, awesome takeoff right there. But it finally hit me. I was like, all it takes to go from 50 to 100 plus is like 0.2 seconds of composure in the air. Because once you get out in the air and you start, you know, going 150 feet plus, when you go about 50 feet, you might have been in the air for, you know, 0.8 seconds.
Like you reach terminal velocity, which...
No, terminal velocity is not till like around 500 or 600 feet,
Oh,
which is
okay.
wild. But for each, you know, 0.5 seconds that you're in the air, you're traveling really far. So I was like, okay, in the first 50 feet, it takes me 0.8 seconds, if I can just be composed for another 0.2 seconds, I'm likely going to travel another 40 feet, because it's compounding on how fast I'm traveling through the air. So I was like, all I need to do is be more composed just composed for 0.2 seconds.
Right.
And sure enough, the next year, once I had that epiphany, I mean, I was hiking up to Pierre's cliff in the summer and like looking at the takeoff, studying the landing zone. I was just so fascinated how he could do it, you know, time and time again. And I was like, I got to figure this out. I got to crack the code, you know, because he was the only guy.
Right.
And so the next year I found this great 90-footer, and it was terrifying, right? But I was like, you know, tomorrow, next time. And that was like my mentality. But I was like, no, it's right now. Like, seize the moment.
Right.
This is what you're interested in. All of them are going to be scary. Like, focus, find that, you know, like you're saying, composure. And this is it, you know? So I found the composure, did this 90-footer, and super relaxed when I landed, didn't feel a thing. And I was just laughing because I was like, I can go as big as I want. Like, I can go as big as I want.
That's insane.
Yeah. But,
I mean, I think some scientists should pull your brain apart and figure out how you can zen out so much doing that.
I know, that's
a pretty
I'd
rare
be
thing.
pretty interested too.
Have you experienced this with anything else you do, or is it just
Just
cliffs
that,
and skiing?
like, that's it, man.
You don't
like-
feel it running up the mountain?
No, I mean, I love it. It's, you know, when you
Right.
have those moments of clarity when you're out skiing and hiking around, like everyone has
Sure.
them when you're in the mountains, and that's why it's fun. But this particular strange thing that I do when I do big cliffs, the only other time I've seen it is when you read like interviews with monks that talk about how they can take their
Right.
brain to like these crazy places. I'm like, I know that place.
Can you do
know?
remote viewing? Have you ever tried that?
No, but dreaming.
Because the
I've
military would
cruised
be
around.
interested. Oh, really?
Yeah.
You can control your dreams?
Yeah, I've had two that I was aware that I was dreaming and I was actually steering myself around, and that was cool. And I've woken up before with my conscious while I was still sleeping. It felt very eerie. Done that like 4 or 5 times. So I was like, man, if I could just not be freaked out, because I'd always fight to wake up because it felt so weird.
There's no peyote involved or
None,
anything
no,
like
I was
that.
just sleeping. Although one time when I got way into the big cliffs, I think it was myself, like my soul or something was checking in with me, because we were watching the World Cup at a buddy's house, just like hanging out, and I was tired or something, but I fell asleep. I was like taking a nap while everyone was kind of lazily watching the World Cup on just like a Sunday afternoon, and I like actually did raise up like above my body. I could like see myself just sitting there napping, and it was like this strange, I was checking in. I was like, you say you know what you're doing, you say all these things about cliffs and that you know what you're doing, but do you really? Because this is super dangerous. If you make one mistake, that's it, you know? And it was cool because I felt like this cool thing rise up in me where I like answered immediately. I was like, yes, you know, and I woke up. But it was weird. I had this like strange thing where something woke up in me, and
I mean, I've heard
checked
that
in with
before. People
myself.
meditate and they can like remove themselves.
Yeah, I'd love to explore it more, because I don't like
Who do we talk to?
give myself like a 30 minutes a day where I go sit somewhere and meditate at all. Like, never explored that. But I've had, you know, I do think that I am on some weird abilities that people that do explore that, I've definitely, when I read what they do, it's like, oh yeah, I know that, you know, and that's a strange way I got to achieve
Did this ever happen when you were younger? Like when you were a little kid, did you have things happen where you're like, Mom, this, like, I just had this thing happen, and she's like, no.
I'd always dream I could fly, but I never had any weird out-of-body stuff.
Man, I could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, it's cool. I do want to check it out more, though.
So now running uphill. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Where did this idea come from?
So come summertime, usually I'll go ski in South America or something, but obviously you want to find new activities, and I'd always be mountain biking or wake surfing. And 6 years ago, I got this really cool dog. She's a rescue dog, and it just kind of happened, and she's total peak beast, you know. But the first summer I had her, I started going on a few mountain bike rides, and I was like, man, this is really beating her up. Like, she was handling it fine, but I was like, this is not sustainable. I cannot take this dog on these big mountain bike rides. So I lived right by the trailhead to Mount Olympus, and I started hiking Mount Olympus to the stream, which is like essentially halfway up, and it's still an absolute butt kicker. It's like, you know, almost 2,000 feet in 2 miles. So it's straight up, but it's so fun, so beautiful views. I was getting in great shape. After doing that for a couple of weeks, a buddy of mine was like, oh man, I see you on Olympus all the time, and he's a forest firefighter, and he's like, our whole crew, we train on that, and you can't even be a forest firefighter unless you can hike to that stream in under 30 minutes. So I was like, oh, I'm in shape, I got this. So I go out the next time, and I time myself, and I like hike fast the whole way up, and I was like 31 minutes. I was like super pissed, you know, and I was like, what? So then I got addicted to the watch. And, you know, after going like 3 or 4 nights a week, I started chipping that time down into the 29s, the 28s. Then I'm like, what are your guys' best times? And they're like, oh, mine's like 24:20. You know, some other guy in some other unit did like a 22:09 or something. And I was like, what? So I was just so obsessed for beating the clock.
Right.
But my dog was stoked, and I was getting these great sunsets, you know, and I'd be like trying to invite people, and they're like, oh, I don't trail run. And I'm like, it's not trail running. Like, you're literally redlining straight up a mountain, hiking. Yeah. And then you're kind of like Jedi quick twinkle toes on your way down. Right. And it's like an hour door to door, and you get annihilated, but you feel so good. You see the sickest sunsets, sunrises, and I mean, I'd still knock out full Olympuses and other like bench hikes like Grandeur, and I was just getting way into peak bagging, you know, and just felt so good, and all these great sunsets and sunrises, and my dog's stoked. And I was like, my friend Parker, his wife Kate, was like, hey, I'm doing this trail run race in Moab. I see you're always out doing it. Like, you want to come try it out? I'm like, no, I don't trail run. She's like, well, just come. We're going to camp and whatever. Like, I already entered you and Parker anyway. So I'm like, oh, great. So we go down there, and it's like, you know, there's like a 6, 9, and a 16-mile option. And she signs me up for the 6 mile. And there's like maybe 800 feet of vertical. And like 500 people are at this race. And I mean, obviously it's beautiful. It's the Amasa back like area right out of Moab. And so the trail's beautiful. And in that first race, I got second place. So I was like way pumped. So I'm like, oh, sweet. I got like this whole other maybe off-season career or whatever. I could just have a fun hobby of doing mountain run races. And so anyway, first off, we get done with the race. We're the only car that like pulls our car up, cracks some beers and kind of tailgates and routes people through the finish line. There was no infrastructure at all for like the hangout at all. Mm-hmm. And then for my second place, I got like a $10 gift certificate to the coffee shop. And registration was like $65, $70. Right. So I'm looking around and I'm like, what a massive missed opportunity, you know? And I'm like, noted, you know? And I was like, all these people are dying to have a good time. And there's just no reason for anyone to want to. But so I go home, I Google like trail run races, peak oriented. Like I want to go find some races that are like Olympus, going to the top and back down. But all I could find were the Speed Goat 50Ks that are, you know, 32 miles with 18,000 feet of elevation change.
It's a different thing, man.
100 milers, you know, and I'm like, and then Spartans and mud runs and relays. And I was like, that's all cool and all, but where is the race that goes up to Mount Olympus and back down, or the equivalent? And the only thing I could find was up in Alaska. There's this awesome race called Mount Marathon, and it's 3,000 vertical in like 1.2 miles up and back down. They've been doing it for 90 years. Like 3,000 people do it every year on July 4th. The whole town comes out, like all of Alaska comes out, and they take it super serious. And I mean, people die, people get lost, people break arms. It's a gnarly race. I mean, it's like, you know, 3,000 vertical feet in 1.2 miles. That's insane, you know? Right. And so once I surveyed the whole landscape, I was like, that's just shocking. And instantly I was like, man, I should create like the Wasatch Classics and like have races up Grandeur and Olympus, and like Beacon Peak was like my first original just kind of fleeting thought. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I know however much time we have left, I'll try to be shorter in my answers, but
you're making my job easy. I just get to listen.
I go to Iceland.
I've been there. I did a half Ironman there. It's incredible.
Isn't it? It's so beautiful.
It's a crazy place.
It's crazy. Man. It's pretty.
I feel like that's the place to go now.
It
I went kind of when nobody was going, and now it's like all my
curve.
Friends in LA go to Iceland all the time.
I know, yeah. But the first time I went was 5 years ago, and then I went 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I think I was not that far out, but definitely 5 years ago, it felt like not that many people were going.
Right.
But I guess 5 years ago. Maybe it was 4 years ago. Anyway, we hiked this beautiful, to go ski the chute. We hike up there, take us a couple hours. We chill. Insane sunset, you know, Arctic Oceans, just profoundly beautiful. And I was like, felt so good because I walked up there, and I was like, right then, I was like, I'm going to go home and start that race series. I don't know what it's going to be about, but that was like in March of 2015.
How many seasons have you been doing this now?
This is our fourth.
Fourth season.
Yeah.
How many races are in it?
6.
6.
4
Most
states.
of them are Utah, Colorado, right?
Well, we have one in Alaska now, too, and in Sun Valley, Idaho.
Right.
And then A base in Colorado, and then we have one at Brighton, Snowbird, and Alta.
Gotcha.
So 6 total.
Are you going to race them?
Oh, yeah, I race them all.
You do?
Yeah.
How do you do?
The first year I was doing all right, but I'm definitely not in that. When I was dedicated to like beating the clock back in the Olympus.
Like, I watch your Instagram stories. Yeah. You're definitely getting the miles in right now.
No, I'm definitely. Well, that's another thing too, is that once I thought I was fast from that first race I did, it's because really no one was there that was fast.
There's superhumans out there.
I quickly got humbled. Right. I'm definitely, you know, I'm not that great, but I have fun, you know.
Kaylin always tells me, she's like, I'm a gravity athlete. And I'm like, I'm going to use that. I like that.
I like that. That's good.
I'm better at going downhill. I'm a bigger...
Yeah. But that moment of March in Iceland, fast forward to August, that summer was our first race. I just came home and cranked it. And that first summer we had I race at Deer Valley, at Alta, Snowbird, and Crested Butte, Colorado.
So they're on average like how long?
On average, they're about 8 miles.
Round trip. So 4 up, 4 down.
Yep, with 3,000 vert.
3,000 vert.
Yeah, so 3,000 up and down.
Maybe sounds easy. I did a running clamp in Mammoth one time with Dina Castor, and we ran up the mountain the last day. And it's
hard.
The things you don't think about are like how bad your calves are going to feel.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot.
And I remember like looking back down and seeing people walking up the mountain backwards.
Yeah.
Because their legs were just shot.
It's pretty cool because we do get pro runner types and like Olympic dudes and guys like me that are just kind of bros that are in decent shape, but we get a lot of everybody. You know, we've had ages 11 through 67 so far. And we just had a 71-year-old sign up because...
Does that worry you?
No, because usually if a 71-year-old signs up, he knows what he's up to.
Right.
And, you know, our first place guy, like at Alta, for example, we run from the bottom all the way to the top of Baldy and back down. And the guy that wins does it in 59 minutes, which is crazy. And like my fastest on that was like 1:22, but the average person is finishing in like 1 hour and 50 minutes.
Well, you've heard about these dudes that like go up Grand Teton and back, right? In like 4 hours or whatever.
It's wild. Krapuka and
he wears
Killian.
Like a speed suit.
Yeah.
And I have a friend, Brian Warren, who's a mountain guide up there. He was the head mountain guide at Jackson Hole, and he's like, I was up there one day, like pulling rope, guiding people through, and he's like, I literally flinched. I thought I saw a flash of color.
Totally.
And he was like running past.
Yeah, those guys come to our races, and they're superhumans.
Yeah.
Like, straight up.
I mean, how else do you describe it? I could train my whole life, and I could never get close to that.
I'm just like, they have to be doing like the Lance Armstrong stuff because it's impossible, you know. But
right
they're
here,
not.
We're
going
to declare that there's no drug testing at these races.
No, but if you had the ability to have the financing and you wouldn't be doing my race. You'd be off doing something else better than $700 for a winner, you know.
So the first one's June 30th.
Yeah, and then it's pretty much every 2 weeks all the way through September.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
I'm pretty excited to hone in and just really be highly motivated this summer to throw really good mountain races. I'm just locked in.
Is the goal to take this nationally, or you want to keep it kind of where it is?
Well, our title sponsor is a really cool Swiss running company called On. And
shoes.
Yeah, we're discussing at length getting a race out in Switzerland next year. So it'd be really cool to have a race in Switzerland and Alaska, and then Colorado and Utah and Idaho. And I definitely would like to eventually have one in Tahoe and like Northwest, out east, and possibly more in Europe. So there's a lot of fun potential. And right now I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I'm just locking in, and we're going to throw 6 great races this year. And then as soon as they end, then I'll start thinking about next year, because there is a lot of excitement, a lot of opportunity, and we're selling out races. It's crazy. Like, it's all coming together.
I'm excited for it. I got to get my butt in shape.
I know.
I'm looking forward
we're
to
pumped.
it.
Uncharted's going to be there, so I appreciate you supporting it.
No, of course, man. No, thanks for having us. And it's fun. I came across one last year. I think you did one in town here, right?
You did Deer Valley.
Deer Valley, I think I was on a bike or something and went by, and I was like,
cool.
I got to do that next year.
Nice,
so
nice.
I'm excited, but I got some work to do between now and then. And I can't use my, I'm starting a company excuse, because you have that too. It's going to happen. So
cool, man. I'll be stoked
it's
to sit there.
I appreciate it.
We'll battle.
Yeah, dude, we can talk for hours.
Yeah.
I don't want to get these too long, but we should do this again sometime.
Yeah, man, I'd be always stoked to come back.
I'll put all the links and everything around this, but where can people find more information?
For the races, go to cirqueseries.com. You can find them on all the races on Instagram too, just Cirque Series account. All my stuff, I think probably is the best, is just check me out on Instagram, which is my name, Julian Carr, and then Discrete on Instagram too, discreteclothing.com.
Right.
But you know, we take a lot of pride in making a great line of beanies and headwear and neck masks and all that good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah, flannels and everything. But the races, man, are top of mind, and really excited to see people come out this summer.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming in. I'm still trying to figure out how you zen out so much.
I know, me too, man.
We're going to get to the bottom of that.
You tell me. I want to know.
Cool. Well, thanks, Julian. That's it for this time, I guess.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
You bet.